Okay, welcome to my cancer overload site. And by that I mean you can control your cancer in several different ways. The three topics that I want to talk about are controlling your brain to fight the cancer, and that's the only one I'll do this time. And then we'll talk about doctors for cancer and other diseases, and then we'll talk about dealing with your insurance company. The reason for this YouTube is because I've had doctors and professionals tell me I should do motivational speaking because of how I deal with everything I have. Now let me explain what I have real quick, because I only get 15 minutes to do this and it cuts me off. But I have Addison's disease, type 1 diabetes, a thyroid condition, and a few years ago I was diagnosed with SPS, which is stiff person syndrome, which your chances of getting that are 1 in a million. So those four things combined put me in a interesting predicament that nobody in the United States has. Those four things combined. I guess about 6 months ago or so, I was diagnosed with stomach cancer stage 4 and liver cancer stage 2, which makes everything even more complicated. But what I have found and what I have done for 27 years of having the whole thing, 27 years ago when I got the three diseases, I worked in restaurants. I was a restaurant manager, district restaurant manager. They said you aren't going to be able to work, 50 to 80 hours a week. It won't work with the Addison's disease. It has worked with the Addison's disease. I did that for 25 years, till about 2.5 years ago when I got the stiff person syndrome, and then I decided it wasn't fair to who I was working with, as well as myself. So now I'm on disability. But even being on disability and even having everything that I have, I still find ways to do things. The predicament with the stage 4 cancer was, I think, 3 months with no chemo, 6 months with chemo. I believe I'm past the 6 months or real close to it. I feel a lot better than I felt. And the way I do it is this. 90% of your problem is your brain. If you can get your brain to overcome your body aches or whatever issues you're having, I have chemo, but my chemo doesn't react in the same way most people's chemo does, so I may be a little bit different in that thing. I get weird things that they haven't seen yet, and I don't get some of the regular stuff. So that's how that works. But 90% is in your brain. If you can keep your brain at 90% functioning, it will cure or alleviate some of your body issues. My last scan that I had, and that was only after 4 weeks of chemo, showed the tumor in the stomach is shrinking. The liver hasn't gotten any worse, hasn't gotten any better. They don't think. They're trying to have a hard time reading the liver one, but what have you. But what I do is I make a list every day of stuff I want to accomplish. And generally speaking, I get up at 5 o'clock every morning, whether I want to or I don't want to. And believe me, there's some days I don't want to just because of the way that I feel, but I end up doing it anyway. I make my list. Most times I got my list 85 to 90% done. And if I don't, because I'm having a real bad day, I just move it to the next day. Because sometimes things take longer, especially fighting with the insurance company. But, you can still do anything you want to do being sick. You may just have to alter it. Like if I pick, grocery shopping and the bank and whatever I'm doing that day, I may go out for an hour or two, come home, rest for an hour, and then go back out for an hour or two. You just have to alter what you do, and you have to alter what you can do. Like I used to do baking a long time ago, and then Once I got too busy, I didn't do it. Well, now I have time, so I go back to baking some stuff. There's nothing that I went to try last week, and I was going to go to the batting cages. Now, would I have had the same type of fun that I had 20 years ago in the batting cages? Probably not. But it was something to do, but then it rained, so that sort of killed that idea. But I would do anything that I did 20 years ago, except maybe 20 years ago I might jump out of an airplane and parachute. I don't think I'd do that. I don't think I'd try that at this point. But you have to be positive about what you're doing. You have to have the right doctors. I mean, my cancer doctor I have, when I first went to him, was all gloom and doom. I have basically, if I don't like the doctor, I either change doctors or I change the way the doctor thinks. My cancer doctor's, he has changed the way he thinks about me now. As a matter of fact, he wants me to do some motivational speaking for patients that he has there. So I'm slowly but surely changing him. My internal medicine doctor, he is the best doctor I've seen in 27 years. He researches everything. When they came up with the SPS, he knew nothing about it because there's only about 6 people in the whole state of Georgia that have it. But he researched it, and he knows just as much now as the neurologist knows about it. My neurologist is good, my endocrinologist is good, and all my other doctors are good. And if they're not my doctors anymore. And you have to surround yourself with people that are more positive than negative. I don't go to any of the support groups. I don't take any antidepressants or anything. I just run off of my brain. I don't go to the support groups because I don't want to hear all the gloom and doom that some of them have. When they told me about the cancer, I said to my doctor, "Oh, good, I don't have to pay for haircuts as much then." And he thought I was playing around, that I didn't hear what he said. I heard what he said, but you can only change what you can change. You can't give up. You have to just keep pushing forward and find stuff that you can do. And that's the way I basically do everything. There's days, yes, I feel like crap, I don't want to do it, but I'm like, nope, got to do it, because got to keep going. And it actually works 90% of the time. And like I said, I know the pain and everything else that you have to go through, and it depends what type of cancer you have and that sort of thing. I've been lucky to where, even though I have stomach cancer, they can't figure out why. Since we started the chemo, I can eat more now than I could eat before. And I was in the restaurant business for 30 years, so don't take food away from me, because that's my whole passion on things. So it works for me. And I don't think I do anything different except push myself further than I should, and keep an open mind and just keep your mind going. But like I said, with that, you also need the right type of doctors. If you walk into your doctor and your doctor is not really helping you, you don't feel comfortable with them, just find another doctor. Doctors don't know everything. They take guesses. I mean, my doctors actually listen if I want to change a treatment or change one of the things on my list of medicines. We'll go over it, and 98% of the time they're like, okay, let's try that then. And I've had 3 doctors tell me I should be a doctor. And I said, no, I just do what I do, because if I left it up to you guys, you would have killed me a long time ago. And I'll say whatever I want to say to the doctors. I could care less. If they can't take it, oh well. That's their problem, not mine. But you just got to find stuff. You got to think of stuff. You got to treat yourself as if you were your own doctor too. Just like I have a lot of pain in my hands recently from the SPS as to holding utensils when I go to eat, and they get really cramped and twisted, and makes it very painful to eat with a regular fork and knife at times. So what I did is I went out and bought forks and knives with wide handles on the top, so that my hands don't have to deal with little forks and stuff, and that helped quite a bit. And that was my doing, not the doctor's doing. With the SPS, loud noises set it off, especially screaming little kids in stores and that. So I walk around with earplugs, and if it gets too loud, I just throw the earplugs in, and I can still hear everybody, but it's not as loud. That was another thing of my own doing. So you just have to figure out what works for you, and just because a doctor didn't tell you to do it doesn't mean it won't work. And you have to just find stuff you can do, find stuff that makes you happy to do, and just deal with it. And like I said, well, I didn't say it, but I'll say now. People don't wake up in the morning planning on dying that morning. There's people that go to work in the morning and get hit by a bus, and that's the end of their life. The only difference between us having medical issues, and as many as I have, and hopefully you guys don't have as many, the only difference we know is that we know what we're going to die from. Chances are it's going to be one of the diseases, but that doesn't mean that I won't walk across the street and get hit by a bus just like anybody else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put motivational stuff on here once a week, and I know this one was a little bit short and maybe not to the degree you wanted, but I'm doing it from the hospital room, and they keep coming in, and I keep having to start over. So that's pretty much it. I hope this helps you, and you start thinking about the brain matter of making your brain overpower the way your body feels. And I firmly believe that 90% of it you can cure, or at least get a longer lifespan out of, if you keep the right attitude. That's about it. Have a great day, and I hope you all feel well.